The words hit me like a physical blow, even though my stepdaughter Mara's voice was barely above a whisper. We were sitting in her bedroom, surrounded by the pastel walls she'd never bothered to repaint since moving in 5 years ago when she was just 12. Now 17, she sat cross-legged again on her bed, picking at a loose thread on her comforter, refusing to meet my eyes. Dad made me promise not to tell you. My husband, her father, the man I'd been married to for 6 years, together with for 8, the man who kissed me goodbye every morning and told me he loved me every night. That man had secrets with my stepdaughter that excluded me. I tried to keep my voice steady. Mara, whatever it is, you can tell me. You should tell me. She finally looked up, and I saw something in her brown eyes that made my stomach clench, not just fear or guilt, but a deep, exhausted sadness that no teenager should carry. I don't know where to start. Start anywhere, I said, moving closer to sit on the edge of her bed. Please. She took a shaky breath. It started about 2 years ago. Dad said Mom was asking for more money. Her mother, Lauren, the woman who'd given birth to Mara but had walked away when she was 7, choosing her new boyfriend and a fresh start in California over her own daughter. The woman who sent birthday cards with generic messages and never called. The woman whose absence had created the space for me to become something like a mother to this girl. More money, I repeated carefully. Your dad pays child support. That's what he told me. Mara's fingers twisted the thread tighter. He said Mum was threatening to take him to court, to ask for full custody if he didn't increase the payments. He said she didn't really want me, she just wanted to hurt him and get money. He said we couldn't tell you because you'd worry, and it wasn't fair to stress you out when you were working so hard at the hospital. I was a nurse practitioner, and yes, my hours were long, my shifts often brutal. But the idea that my husband would keep something this significant from me because I was too busy sent a chill through my chest. How much money? I asked. He said $5,000 a month. My mouth went dry. We didn't have that kind of money. Nathan worked as a sales manager at a furniture company, and while we were comfortable, we certainly weren't wealthy. Our mortgage, our car payments, Mara's college fund, everything was carefully budgeted. $5,000 a month would destroy us. Mara, I need you to tell me everything. From the beginning. She nodded, and the story spilled out of her in fragments. 2 years ago, Nathan had sat her down and explained that her mother was threatening legal action. He'd shown Mara emails, angry, demanding emails supposedly from Lauren, calling him a deadbeat, saying she deserved more, threatening to upend their lives. He'd told Mara that they needed to be a team, that they'd get through this together, but that they couldn't tell me because the stress would be too much for me. He started taking money from the joint account, Mara said, her voice cracking. Small amounts at first, but then more. He said he was setting it aside for Mum's demands. He said when it was all settled, he'd explain everything to you, but until then, we had to keep it between us. The joint account. Our shared finances. I thought of all the times I'd checked our balance and noticed it was lower than expected, but Nathan always had an explanation. An unexpected car repair, a work expense he'd forgotten to mention, groceries that cost more than usual. I'd trusted him implicitly. How much, Mara? How much has he taken? She closed her eyes. I don't know exactly, but Mom called me last week. The room seemed to tilt. Lauren called you? She wanted to talk to me about college. She said she'd been thinking about me, that she knew she hadn't been a good mom, but she wanted to help with my tuition if she could. We talked for almost an hour. Mara's voice dropped to barely audible. She doesn't know anything about any court case, Grace. She hasn't asked Dad for money. She didn't even know he was paying child support at all. The thread she'd been pulling came loose in her hand. She stared at it like it was something alien. I confronted Dad yesterday. I showed him Mum's number on my phone, told him what she said. He got really quiet, and then he said I must have misunderstood, that Mum was lying to me to turn me against him. But Grace, I know when someone's lying. I've known for a while now that something wasn't right, but I kept telling myself I was wrong, that Dad wouldn't lie to me, to us. I realized I was holding my breath. What did he say when you pushed him? He got angry, really angry. He said I was betraying him by even talking to Mom, that she was manipulating me. Then he left the house. That was last night. He didn't come home until this morning, and when he did, he acted like nothing happened. He made us breakfast, asked about my homework. She looked at me with those exhausted eyes again. That's when I knew I had to tell you, because if he can lie that easily, if he can just pretend everything's fine when it's not, then I don't know what else he's lying about. Neither did I. Nathan had texted me during my shift at the hospital that he was taking Mara out for dinner, just the two of them. A father-daughter date. He'd been doing that more often lately, making special time with her, he'd said, because she'd be off to college soon. I thought it was sweet. Now I wondered what he'd really been doing. Had he been trying to manage her, to keep his story straight, to ensure she stayed quiet? Where is he now? I asked. He said he had to run errands. He's been gone for like 3 hours. I pulled out my phone and called Nathan. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. My hands were shaking as I set the phone down. Mara, I need you to do something for me. Can you forward me any emails or messages your dad showed you from your mum? She nodded and pulled out her laptop. As she navigated to her email, I tried to organize my thoughts. If Nathan had been taking money from our account under false pretenses, if he'd been lying to both of us for 2 years, then what was the money really for? Where had it gone? And why involve Mara in the deception at all? Here, Mara said, turning the laptop towards me. These are screenshots Dad sent me of the emails from Mom. I leaned in, scanning the messages. They were inflammatory, accusatory, exactly the kind of emails that would justify Nathan's actions, if they were real. I noted the email address, laurenmcallister.2015@gmail.com. It seemed generic, impersonal. Lauren's social media accounts, which I'd admittedly stalked more than once over the years, showed a different email address in her contact information. Can you call your mum back? I asked. Put her on speaker. Mara's hands trembled as she dialed. The phone rang twice before a woman's voice answered, slightly wary. Mara? Hi, Mum. I'm here with Grace, my stepmom. Can I put you on speaker? There was a pause. Sure, honey. I'd never spoken to Lauren directly. We'd existed in separate spheres, her absence making room for my presence. Now, hearing her voice, I felt an unexpected kinship with this woman I'd never met. We were both trying to understand what Nathan had done. Lauren, this is Grace. I'm sorry to call out of the blue, but I need to ask you some questions about Nathan and child support. Another pause, longer this time. I don't understand. Nathan doesn't pay child support. We agreed years ago when I left that I'd sign away my rights and he'd have full custody. I didn't ask for money because I knew I was walking away from being a mum. It was the least I could do. The confirmation hit me like a second blow. And you've never threatened legal action? Never asked for more money? Never. I've barely had contact with Nathan since the divorce. Maybe a handful of emails about Mara over the years, but that's it. Grace, what's going on? I explained as calmly as I could what Nathan had told Mara, the emails he'd supposedly received, the money he'd been taking. Lauren listened in silence until I finished. Those emails aren't from me, she said finally. That's not even my email address. Grace, I think you need to check your finances very carefully, and maybe talk to a lawyer. After the call ended, Mara and I sat in heavy silence. The girl I'd helped raise, whose school projects I'd supervised, and whose heartbreaks I'd consoled, looked at me with a mixture of guilt and relief. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, she whispered. You were trying to protect me, and you trusted your dad. Neither of those things are wrong. I pulled her into a hug, feeling her thin shoulders shake. We're going to figure this out together. I spent the next hour at my laptop, logged into our bank accounts. Nathan and I had a joint checking and savings account, plus individual retirement accounts and a college fund for Mara. I started with the checking account, going back 2 years, and what I found made my blood run cold. Regular withdrawals. Some small, $200, $500, and some larger, $1,500 here, $2,000 there. Not the $5,000 a month he'd claimed, but enough to add up to something devastating. I started a spreadsheet documenting every suspicious transaction. When I was done, the total made me nauseous. $73,000. Over 2 years, Nathan had siphoned away $73,000 from our accounts. But it wasn't just withdrawals. There were transfers too, moving money to an account number I didn't recognize. I tried to trace where the money went, but the receiving account was listed only by its routing number and account number. No name attached. Mara appeared in the doorway of our home office. "Is it bad?" "It's bad," I said quietly. She came to stand beside me, looking at the screen. "What do we do?" That was the question. What did we do when the foundation of our life together had been built on lies? What did we do when the person we'd trusted most had betrayed us systematically, deliberately, over years? "We confront him," I said. "Together, when he gets home." But Nathan didn't come home that evening. His phone continued to go straight to voicemail. I texted him. "We need to talk. It's urgent." No response. I called his office, but the line rang through to an automated message saying they were closed for the day. As night fell, Mara and I ordered pizza neither of us really ate. We sat in the living room, CNN playing on mute in the background, both of us jumping at every sound that might be his car in the driveway. At 10 o'clock, my phone finally rang. Not Nathan, his mother, Patricia. "Grace, dear, is Nathan with you?" Her voice was tight with worry. "No, I haven't seen him since this morning. Why?" "He was supposed to meet me for coffee this afternoon, but he never showed up. That's not like him. I've been calling and calling, but he's not answering." A new fear crept into my chest. What if something had happened to him? What if, in the midst of all this deception, he'd had an accident, or worse? "When did you last hear from him?" I asked. "This morning. He texted me around 9 to confirm our coffee date at 2, but he never came and I haven't heard from him since." "Grace, is something wrong? You sound strange." I made a split-second decision. "Patricia, can you come over? There's something we need to discuss." She arrived 20 minutes later, still in the cardigan and slacks she'd worn to the coffee shop, her silver hair perfectly styled as always. Patricia had always been kind to me, welcoming me into the family without reservation when Nathan and I got engaged. She adored Mara, had been devastated when Lauren left, and had often told me how grateful she was that I'd stepped into the mother role with such love. Now I had to tell her that her son was a liar, and possibly worse. We sat in the living room, me, Mara, and Patricia. I explained everything, watching Patricia's face transform from confusion to disbelief to something that looked like resignation. "The money," she said finally. "He came to me 6 months ago. He needed to borrow $15,000. He said it was for medical bills, that you'd had some procedures done and the insurance hadn't covered everything. He said you were embarrassed about it and didn't want anyone to know. I gave him the money." Her voice cracked. "Did I just fund whatever he's been doing?" "You were trying to help," I said, but inside I was reeling. 15,000 more. That brought the total to $88,000, nearly $90,000. Gone. "There's more," Patricia said, her hands twisting in her lap. "His father, before he passed 5 years ago, he told me something. He said Nathan had gotten into some trouble in his 20s before he met Lauren. Financial trouble. Debts he couldn't pay. John helped him out of it, but he made me promise never to tell Nathan that I knew. He said Nathan was ashamed that bringing it up would only hurt him." "What kind of trouble?" I asked. "Gambling. John said Nathan had gotten in deep with some people who weren't patient about getting their money back. John paid them off and made Nathan promise to never gamble again. As far as I knew, he kept that promise. The pieces were starting to come together, but the picture they formed was one I didn't want to see. Do you think he's gambling again? Patricia looked at Mara, then at me. I don't know, but I think we need to find him. And when we do, we need answers. We tried everything. I called Nathan's work friends, his brother in Phoenix, even the hospital to see if he'd been brought in as a patient. Nothing. His phone remained off or dead, his location impossible to trace. At midnight, I made the decision to file a missing person report. The police took my information but explained that an adult missing for less than 24 hours, especially one who might have reason to be avoiding contact, wasn't their highest priority. Mara finally fell asleep on the couch around 1 a.m., and Patricia dozed in the armchair. I stayed awake, my laptop open, digging deeper into our finances. I pulled our credit reports, and there it was. Another secret. Nathan had 3 credit cards I didn't know about. The balances made my stomach lurch. $32,000 across the 3 cards, all maxed out. The charges were recent, most within the last 6 months. Cash advances, purchases at places I didn't recognize, online transactions that were vaguely listed as entertainment services. I searched for the addresses of some of the physical locations where he'd made charges. Several were in Atlantic City. Others were in Philadelphia, about 2 hours from our home in suburban Pennsylvania. I clicked on one of the Philadelphia addresses and found myself looking at the website for a private poker club. Patricia had been right. Nathan was gambling again. But why? What could have driven him back to something he'd promised his father he'd quit? And why the elaborate lie about Lauren and child support? Why involve Mara? I thought back over the past 2 years, trying to remember if there had been signs I'd missed. Nathan had been working longer hours, he'd said, trying to secure a promotion. There had been more work trips, more nights when he'd come home late smelling like cigarette smoke, which he'd attributed to colleagues who smoked. He'd been more distracted, quicker to anger sometimes, but I'd chalked it up to work stress. How could I have been so blind? My phone buzzed with an incoming email. The sender address was one I didn't recognize. truthteller2847@protonmail.com. The subject line read, "About Nathan Chambers." My hand shook as I clicked it open. "Mrs. Chambers, you don't know me, but I know your husband. If you want to understand where your money went and why, meet me tomorrow at noon at the Starbucks on Market Street in Philadelphia. Come alone, I'll be wearing a red baseball cap." I stared at the screen. This could be anything, a scam, a trap, someone trying to exploit our situation. But it could also be answers. I didn't sleep at all that night. When dawn broke, pale and grey through our living room windows, I'd made my decision. I was going to Philadelphia. Patricia woke first, stretching stiffly in the armchair. "Any news?" "No, but I got a strange email. Someone who says they know Nathan wants to meet me in Philadelphia today." She sat up straight. "Grace, that sounds dangerous." "I know, but I need answers and I'm not getting them anywhere else." "Then I'm coming with you." The email said to come alone. "Then I'll wait in the car, but I'm not letting you do this by yourself." Mara appeared in the doorway, her hair mussed from sleep. "Do what by yourself?" I explained about the email, Mara's jaw set in that stubborn way that reminded me so much of her father. "I'm coming too." "Absolutely not," I said. "You have school." "I'm not going to school when my dad's missing and you're meeting some mysterious stranger. I'm 17, not 7, and I'm coming." Oh. In the end, all 3 of us made the drive to Philadelphia. Patricia drove while I sat in the passenger seat, my stomach in knots. Mara was silent in the back, her earbuds in, but her eyes alert, watching the landscape slide by. The Starbucks on Market Street was in a busy part of the city, which made me feel slightly safer. Patricia and Mara waited in the car while I went inside, scanning the crowd for someone in a red baseball cap. I found him in the back corner, a man in his 40s, wearing the red cap low over his eyes, a laptop open in front of him. When he saw me, he gestured to the empty chair across from him. Mrs. Chambers. Who are you? I asked, not sitting. My name's Ray Hernandez. I run a private poker club here in the city. Your husband's been a regular at my tables for about 18 months. I sat down heavily. How much has he lost? By my count, north of 60,000. But that's just at my place. I know he plays elsewhere too. 60,000. That accounted for most of the missing money. Why are you telling me this? Ray's expression was uncomfortable. Because last week your husband tried to borrow money from people you don't borrow money from. People I've specifically banned from my club because they're dangerous. He owes them $25,000 and they gave him until tomorrow to pay. My vision swam. Tomorrow? That's why he disappeared. I'm guessing, yeah. Look, I run a clean operation. People come, they play cards, they lose or win, everyone goes home. But what your husband's doing, the desperation plays, the borrowing, the lies he's probably telling, that's how people get hurt. I'm telling you this because I don't want that on my conscience. Do you know where he is? No, but I know who he owes money to. Guy named Marcus Webb. He's not patient, and he's not nice. If your husband doesn't pay up, Webb's going to come looking for him. And when he does, he might come looking at your house. Fear, sharp and cold, lanced through me. We need to call the police. You can try, but Webb's smart. He doesn't leave evidence. And your husband came to him voluntarily. The police are going to say it's a civil matter until it becomes a criminal one. Ray slid a piece of paper across the table. This is Webb's number. I don't know if calling him will help or make things worse, but you should at least know who you're dealing with. I took the paper with numb fingers. Why are you really doing this? Ray looked away. I have a daughter about your stepdaughter's age. I saw Nathan show someone a picture of his family once, laughing about how you had no idea where he was. It made me sick. Nobody deserves that. When I got back to the car, both Patricia and Mara could tell from my face that the news was bad. I drove this time, needing something to focus my shaking hands on, and told them everything Ray had said. $25,000 by tomorrow, Patricia repeated. Where would we even get that kind of money? We don't, I said. We call the police, we file a report about these threats, and we let them handle it. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't that simple. Webb wasn't going to wait for the legal system. And if Nathan didn't pay, if these men came to our house looking for him or for payment, Mara could be in danger. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me click accept. Grace. Nathan's voice. He sounded exhausted, terrified. Where are you? I demanded. I can't tell you, Grace. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. You took $90,000 from us. You lied to our daughter. You told your mother I had medical bills that didn't exist. What did you mean for to happen? I thought I could win it back. I thought if I could just get one good night, one big win, I could fix everything before you ever had to know. The gambling addiction logic, the same rationalization that had probably destroyed him the first time. Nathan, someone named Marcus Webb is looking for you. He says you owe him $25,000. Silence on the other end, then barely audible. I know. Come home. We'll figure this out together. We'll talk to the police. We'll get you help. I can't. If I come home, he'll find me there. He'll come to the house. Mara could get hurt. At least he still cared about that. So what's your plan? Hide forever? Let these men destroy our lives looking for you? I have a plan. I just need 2 more days. There's a high-stakes game in Atlantic City tomorrow night, and if I can get in, if I can win. No. The word came out sharper than I intended. Patricia and Mara both jumped. No more gambling. No more lies. This ends now. You don't understand. I have to try. It's the only way. The only way is to face what you've done. Come home, Nathan. I'm sorry, Grace. I love you. Tell Mara I love her too. The line went dead. I tried calling back immediately, but the number went straight to a generic voicemail. He'd used a burner phone or was blocking calls. Either way, he was gone again. What did he say? Mara asked, her voice small. I told them, watching hope drain from their faces as I spoke. When I finished, Mara was crying silently and Patricia looked like she'd aged 10 years. He's going to get himself killed, Patricia whispered. My boy is going to die because he can't stop gambling. No, I said firmly, though I wasn't sure I believed it. We're going to find him first. We're going to end this. But how? Nathan didn't want to be found, and even if we located him, what then? We didn't have $25,000 to give Marcus Webb. We couldn't make the debt disappear. And Nathan, desperate and addicted, wasn't thinking rationally. We drove back home in silence. When we pulled into our driveway, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Our front door was slightly ajar. Stay in the car, I told Mara and Patricia. Grace, don't, Patricia started, but I was already out, my phone in my hand with 911, ready to dial. I pushed the door open slowly. Nothing looked disturbed in the entryway. I moved cautiously through the house, my heart hammering. The living room was untouched, the kitchen was fine, but when I reached our bedroom, I stopped. Someone had been through our drawers, our closet. Everything was slightly askew, moved and replaced, but not carefully enough. They'd been looking for something. On our bed was a note, written in black marker on a piece of torn paper. 48 hours, Nathan knows what I want. Marcus Webb had been in our home. I called the police immediately. This time they came. 2 officers took our statements, photographed the note, documented the break-in. They said they'd increase patrols in our neighborhood, but the subtext was clear. Until Nathan paid his debt or something violent happened, there wasn't much they could do. After the police left, Patricia insisted we come stay with her. You're not staying in this house when these people know where you live. For once, I didn't argue. We packed bags for Mara and me, locked up the house, and drove to Patricia's small ranch home 20 minutes away. It was nearly dinner time, and none of us had eaten all day, but food felt impossible. Mara had been quiet since we'd discovered the break-in. Now, sitting at Patricia's kitchen table, she finally spoke. This is my fault. What? I turned to her. Mara, none of this is your fault. If I'd told you sooner what Dad was doing, maybe we could have stopped him. Maybe. Your father is an adult who made his own choices, Patricia interrupted, her voice firm but gentle. He lied to you, manipulated you, and put you in an impossible position. You were protecting me, protecting Grace. That's not wrong, sweetheart. Your father's addiction is not your fault. But I could see Mara didn't believe it. She'd internalized Nathan's web of lies, made herself complicit in his deception, and now she was carrying the guilt of every consequence. I pulled her into a hug. We're going to get through this, all of us, together. That night, unable to sleep in Patricia's guest room, I did what I should have done days ago. I called Nathan's brother, Derek. Derek lived in Phoenix and had always been the more stable of the 2 brothers. Where Nathan was charismatic but impulsive, Derek was steady and practical. They'd grown up in the same house with the same parents, but somehow Derek had turned out differently. Grace, it's late there. Is everything okay? I told him everything. The lies, the gambling, the debt, Marcus Webb, the break-in. Derek listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he let out a long breath. I wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm not. Nathan and I haven't been close for years, and this is part of why. What do you mean? When Dad died, Nathan asked me to help him with something. He needed money to pay off a debt. He wouldn't tell me what for, just that it was important and he was desperate. I gave him $10,000, Grace. He promised he'd pay me back, but he never did. When I asked him about it a few months later, he got angry, said I was holding money over his head. We barely spoke after that. Another $10,000. The total was approaching $100,000 now, maybe more. How had Nathan thought he could ever dig himself out of this hole? Derek, do you have any idea where he might go? Any friends he might contact? Any place he might hide? There used to be a guy he gambled with back in the day before he met Lauren, Name was Tony something. They'd go to Atlantic City together. I don't know if they're still in touch, but if Nathan's planning to play in some high-stakes game, Tony might know about it. Tony. It wasn't much, but it was something. Do you remember Tony's last name? Marconi, I think. Tony Marconi. I thanked Derek and promised to keep him updated. Then I opened my laptop and started searching for Tony Marconi in Atlantic City. What I found was enlightening and troubling in equal measure. Tony Marconi had a criminal record: fraud, racketeering, running illegal gambling operations. He'd served 3 years in prison and been released 2 years ago. His last known address was in Ventnor, just outside Atlantic City. If Nathan was planning to play in a high-stakes game, and if Tony was involved, then Nathan was walking into something far more dangerous than he realized. These weren't casual poker games with friends. This was organized crime. I had to find him before tomorrow night. The next morning, I called in sick to work, the first time I'd done that in years outside of actual illness. Patricia offered to stay home with Mara, but Mara insisted on coming with me. "He's my dad," she said. "I need to be there." So once again, we got in the car. This time, heading toward Atlantic City, I had Tony Marconi's address, and I had a desperate hope that either Tony or someone he knew could tell me where Nathan was planning to play. The address led us to a modest apartment complex a few blocks from the beach. It was late morning, the day overcast and windy, the kind of weather that made Atlantic City look tired and worn rather than exciting. We found Tony's apartment on the second floor. I knocked, no answer. I knocked again, louder, still nothing. "Maybe he's not home," Mara said. I was about to agree when the door next to Tony's opened and an elderly woman peered out. "You looking for Tony?" "Yes, Ma'am. Do you know where he is?" "Probably at the Silver Slipper. That's where he runs his games, about 10 blocks south of here." She gave me the address, then added, "Whatever you need from Tony, be careful. He's not as nice as he looks." The Silver Slipper turned out to be a bar with a back room. The front was mostly empty at this hour, just a bartender wiping down glasses and 2 men playing pool. I approached the bartender with Mara staying close behind me. "I'm looking for Tony Marconi." The bartender didn't look up. "Don't know him." "Please, I need to find my husband. His name is Nathan Chambers. I think Tony might know where he is." That got his attention. He studied me for a moment, then jerked his head towards the back. "Through that door. But if Tony doesn't want to talk to you, you leave immediately. Understood?" I nodded, and Mara and I walked to the door he'd indicated. It opened into a narrow hallway that led to another door, this one with a small window at face height. I could see into what looked like a private room with several tables, most of them empty. I knocked. A moment later, the door opened, and a man in his 50s with slicked back grey hair looked me over. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for Tony Marconi. My name is Grace Chambers. My husband Nathan—" "Ah!" "I know who Nathan is." Tony's expression was unreadable. "Come in. Not her," he added, nodding at Mara. "Ah, tick. She stays with me or I don't come in." He considered this, then shrugged. "Fine, but don't touch anything." The back room was exactly what I'd expected. Poker tables and a bar in the corner, dim lighting and the smell of cigars. 2 men sat at one of the tables, counting chips. They looked up when we entered, then went back to their work. "So you're Nathan's wife," Tony said, leaning against the bar. "He's mentioned you." "Where is he?" "I don't know. Haven't seen him in a few days, but I know he's trying to get into a game tonight. High stakes, very exclusive. The kind of game where you need an invitation and a buy-in of at least $50,000. $50,000? Nathan didn't have $50,000. Who's running the game? You don't want to know. Is it Marcus Webb? Tony's eyebrows rose. You've done your homework. Yeah, Webb's organizing it. He runs games like this a few times a year. Invitation only. The buy-in is steep, the stakes are higher, and if you can't cover your losses, well, let's just say Webb has creative ways of collecting. Nathan owes Webb $25,000 already, I said. He has until tonight to pay. Then Nathan's making a stupid play. If he gets into that game and loses, Webb won't just take his money. He'll take everything Nathan has, including whatever collateral he puts up to get in. What kind of collateral? Tony looked uncomfortable. Property, usually. Houses, cars, sometimes other things. Our house. Nathan was going to risk our house. Where is this game happening? I can't tell you that. Tony, please. He's going to get himself killed or lose everything we have. If I can get to him before the game starts, maybe I can stop him. Tony studied me for a long moment. Finally, he sighed. The Grand View. It's a hotel on the boardwalk, room 1847. But if you go there and try to stop the game, Webb's people will remove you. These aren't friendly neighborhood poker nights, Mrs. Chambers. These are serious operations with serious money. I grabbed Mara's hand. Thank you. Don't thank me. If Nathan's smart, he won't show up at all, but we both know he's not thinking straight. We left the Silver Slipper and went straight to the Grandview Hotel. It was one of the newer casinos, all gleaming glass and modern design. We walked through the casino floor, past slot machines and blackjack tables, to the elevators. Room 1847 was on the 18th floor. When we got there, I stopped Mara in the hallway. Stay here. If anything happens, if I'm not back in 10 minutes, call the police. Grace. Please, Mara, I need you safe. She nodded reluctantly and I approached the door. I knocked, and a moment later it opened a crack. A large man in a suit looked down at me. This is a private room. I need to speak with Marcus Webb. It's about Nathan Chambers. The man's expression didn't change, but he closed the door. I heard muffled voices inside. A minute later the door opened again, wider this time, and I was gestured inside. The room wasn't what I expected. It was a suite, elegant, expensive, with a view of the ocean through floor-to-ceiling windows. Several men stood around, talking in low voices. In the centre of the room, sitting at a desk with a laptop, was a man I assumed was Marcus Webb. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with sharp features and cold eyes. He looked up when I entered. Mrs. Chambers, I've been expecting someone from your family. Where's my husband? Not here, yet. But the night is young. He doesn't have your money. He doesn't have the buy-in for your game. Whatever he's promised you, he can't deliver. Webb smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. That's between Nathan and me. But since you're here, let me make something clear. Your husband made a commitment. He borrowed money from me with the understanding that he would pay it back with interest by today. He hasn't. That means he's in default, and I have the right to collect in any way I see fit. You broke into our house. I was looking for collateral. Your husband assured me he had assets worth the debt. Imagine my surprise when I found very little of value. No jewelry, no expensive electronics, no cash. Either your husband lied about what he has or he's already sold it to fund his habit. Either way, I'm owed money. I can get you some of it, not all of it, but some. Give me time. Time is what I've already given. Tonight your husband will play in my game. If he wins, we're square. If he loses, Webb shrugged. Then we'll discuss alternative payment methods. He's not coming, I said firmly. I won't let him. Webb laughed, a dry, humorless sound. You think you can stop him? Mrs. Chambers, your husband is an addict. Addicts don't make rational decisions. He'll be here tonight because he believes he can win. He believes he'll walk out of here with enough money to solve all his problems. And when he loses, and he will lose because my games are designed for the house to win, he'll have nothing left, including you. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to scream. Instead, I forced myself to stay calm. If he shows up, you'll destroy him. He's already destroyed himself. I'm just collecting what I'm owed. There was nothing more to say. Webb wasn't going to call off the debt, and he wasn't going to turn Nathan away if he showed up. This game was happening, and if Nathan walked through that door tonight, I'd lose him, either to debt, to violence, or to his own self-destruction. I left the room and found Mara pacing in the hallway. "We have to find Dad before tonight," she said. "But how?" We didn't know where he was staying, and he wasn't answering his phone. For all I knew, he was already somewhere in Atlantic City preparing for the game, convincing himself this was his last chance. Then I remembered something. Nathan had a Find My Phone app connected to his iCloud account. I'd never had reason to use it before, but if his phone was on, if he hadn't disabled the location services, I might be able to track him. I pulled out my phone and logged into Nathan's iCloud. It took a moment to load, and then a map appeared with a blinking blue dot. He was in Atlantic City, not far from where we were, maybe 6 blocks away near a smaller casino called the Lucky 7. "Got him," I said to Mara. "Let's go." We practically ran through the streets, dodging tourists and street performers. The Lucky 7 was older, less glamorous than the Grandview, the kind of place that catered to locals and serious gamblers rather than casual tourists. Inside, it took me a few minutes of searching before I spotted him. Nathan was sitting at a blackjack table, a small stack of chips in front of him, his face drawn and exhausted. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. I approached the table. He didn't see me until I was right behind him. "Nathan." He turned and the colour drained from his face. "Grace, how did you—" "We need to talk. Now." He glanced at his chips, at the dealer, at the cards on the table. For a moment I thought he might refuse. Then he picked up his chips and stood. "Cash me out," he told the dealer. We found a quiet corner near the slot machines. Mara stood a few feet away, giving us space but making it clear she wasn't leaving. "Grace, I can explain." "No, you can't. There's no explanation that makes this okay. You lied to us for 2 years. You stole $90,000. You put our daughter at risk. You're about to walk into a rigged game where you'll lose everything we have left." "It's not rigged." "It is." "Nathan, Marcus Webb designs these games so the house wins. He told me that himself. If you play tonight, you'll lose. And when you do, he'll take our house, our car, everything. Mara will have nothing left for college. I'll have nothing left. Period." He looked away, his jaw working. "I have to try." "No, you don't. You have to get help. You have to face what you've done and start fixing it. That's what you have to do." "You don't understand. I'm so far in debt, Grace. It's not just Webb. There are others. If I don't win big tonight, if I don't get enough to pay everyone off, they're going to keep coming after me. After us." My heart sank. How many others? How much do you owe? He wouldn't meet my eyes. Including Webb. About 60,000. But he'd already taken 90,000 from us, which meant— "You've lost everything. Every dollar you took, every loan you got, it's all gone." I thought I could win it back. Every time I thought the next hand, the next game, I'd finally hit the big win and fix everything. But it never came, and now I'm out of options. "You have one option," I said firmly. "You walk away, right now. We go home, we sell the house if we have to, we liquidate everything to pay off as much of the debt as we can. You get into treatment for your gambling addiction. We rebuild slowly together. That's the only option that doesn't end in complete disaster." Nathan shook his head. "You don't know these people. If I don't pay Webb tonight, he won't just take the house. He'll hurt me, Grace. Maybe he'll hurt you or Mara to send a message. I can't let that happen." "And you think winning at poker is going to solve that? Nathan, you need professional help. We need to go to the police." "The police can't do anything. This is a civil debt. Until Webb actually commits a crime, they won't touch him. And by the time he does commit a crime, it'll be too late." He was probably right, but I couldn't accept that this was hopeless. Then we run. We take Mara, we leave Pennsylvania, we start over somewhere Webb can't find us. He'll always find us. People like Webb have long memories and longer reaches. We were talking in circles, getting nowhere. And in a few hours that game would start, and Nathan would walk into it because his addiction told him it was his only choice. I looked at Mara, saw the heartbreak on her face, and made a decision. "Fine," I said to Nathan. "If you're going to play, I'm playing too." He blinked. "What?" "You heard me. If you're betting our future on a card game, then I'm sitting at that table with you. At least then I'll know exactly what we're losing." "Grace, no. These aren't friendly games. You could get hurt." "I'm already hurt, Nathan. You hurt me when you lied. You hurt Mara when you dragged her into your deception. And you're about to hurt us more by gambling away everything we have left. So if you're doing this, I'm there. Maybe I can't stop you, but I won't let you do it alone." For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw something crack in Nathan's facade. Tears welled in his eyes. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted any of this. I love you, Grace. I love you and Mara more than anything." "Then prove it. Walk away from the game. Get help. Choose us." But even as I said it, I could see in his eyes that he couldn't. The addiction was too strong, the fear too overwhelming. He was going to play tonight, no matter what I said. And if he was going, then so was I. The hours between our confrontation at the Lucky Seven and the start of Marcus Webb's game felt both endless and far too short. Nathan returned to whatever motel he'd been hiding in, promising to meet me at the Grandview at 8 p.m. Mara and I went back to the car, where I sat gripping the steering wheel and trying to process what I'd just committed to. "You can't actually play in that game," Mara said quietly. "Grace, you don't even know how to play poker." She was wrong about that, at least. My father had taught me poker when I was young, Texas Hold'em specifically. He'd been a math teacher with a love for probability theory, and he'd used poker to teach me about odds, risk assessment, and reading people. I'd played in college, even won a small tournament once. But that was 20 years ago, and I'd never played for stakes that could destroy my life. "I know enough," I said. "Besides, I'm not trying to win. I'm trying to make sure we don't lose everything." "What does that even mean?" Good question. I didn't have a clear plan, just a desperate determination not to let Nathan destroy us alone. Maybe if I was at that table, I could minimize the damage. Maybe I could convince him to fold, to walk away before the losses became catastrophic. Or maybe I'd just watch helplessly as everything fell apart. We drove back to Patricia's house. When we arrived, I found Nathan's mother in her kitchen, surrounded by papers, bank statements, loan documents, credit card bills. She'd been going through her own finances, trying to figure out how much she could contribute to help pay off Nathan's debts. "I can pull together about 12,000 if I cash in some CDs, she said when she saw me. "It's not much, but it's something." "Patricia, you don't have to do that. He's my son. I helped create the person who did this. The least I can do is help clean up the mess." She looked at the papers with tired eyes. "I keep asking myself where I went wrong. John and I tried to raise both boys with good values. We taught them about responsibility, about honesty. How did Nathan end up like this?" I sat down across from her. "Addiction isn't about bad parenting or weak character, it's an illness. And Nathan's been sick for a long time, hiding it, letting it grow until it consumed everything. Are you really going to that game tonight?" Mara must have told her. I nodded. "I don't know what else to do. If I'm there, maybe I can limit the damage." Patricia reached across the table and took my hand. "You're a better person than my son deserves. I hope he knows that." I wasn't sure Nathan knew anything anymore, except that he needed to gamble, and that need overshadowed everything else, including the people he claimed to love. At 6 p.m., I did something I'd never done before. I called my sister Eleanor in California. Eleanor and I had a complicated relationship. We loved each other but lived completely different lives. She was a corporate attorney, unmarried, childless by choice, focused entirely on her career. She'd never understood my decision to marry Nathan and become a stepmother, had warned me that taking on someone else's child and someone else's ex-wife drama was a mistake. Now I had to tell her she'd been right about at least part of it. "Grace, is everything okay?" Eleanor's voice was sharp with concern. I never called her on weekdays. I told her everything, my words tumbling over each other in my haste to get it all out. Elena listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was silent for a long moment. "You need to leave him," she said finally. "Tonight. Take Mara, take whatever money is left, and file for divorce immediately. Let Nathan drown in his own mess." "I can't do that to Mara. She's already traumatized by all this. If I leave Nathan now, she'll blame herself. She shouldn't. This is Nathan's fault, not hers." "Logic and emotion are different things, Elena. You don't have kids. You don't understand. Don't." Her voice was cold. "Don't pull the 'you don't have kids' card. I've seen enough custody battles and divorces in my career to know that staying in a destructive marriage doesn't help the children. It teaches them to accept unacceptable behavior." She was right, and I knew it. But knowing something intellectually and being able to act on it emotionally were two entirely different things. "What would you do if you were me?" I asked. Elena sighed. "Honestly, I'd go to that game. I'd document everything, take photos, record conversations if possible. Then I'd use it all in the divorce proceedings to ensure you get full custody of Mara and that Nathan's financial destruction doesn't touch you. Nevada's a no-fault divorce state, but Pennsylvania isn't. You can cite his gambling addiction, his lies, his financial abuse. A judge will rule in your favor. I don't want a divorce. I want Nathan to get help. I want us to heal. Grace, some things are too broken to fix. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let them shatter completely so everyone can move on." After we hung up, I sat with Eleanor's words echoing in my mind. Was I being naive, thinking we could recover from this? Was I putting Mara through more trauma by trying to save a marriage that was already dead? But then I thought about the Nathan I'd fallen in love with, the man who'd won me over with his humour and his dedication to his daughter, who'd held me through my own father's death, who'd supported my decision to go back to school for my nurse practitioner degree, even when money was tight. That Nathan was still in there somewhere, buried under the addiction and lies. Wasn't he worth fighting for? At 7:30, I started getting ready. I didn't know what one wore to an illegal high-stakes poker game, so I settled on dark slacks and a blazer. Professional, unremarkable, hopefully intimidating enough that the men at that table wouldn't dismiss me immediately. Mara appeared in the doorway as I was checking my reflection. "I want to come with you." "Absolutely not. You're staying here with your grandmother." "Grace, please. I can't just sit here not knowing what's happening. What if something goes wrong? What if Dad does something stupid and you need help?" "Then I'll call the police. Mara, that hotel room is going to be full of dangerous people. I'm not putting you in that environment." Her eyes welled with tears. "I'm scared. I'm scared I'm going to lose both of you." I pulled her into a tight embrace. "You're not going to lose me, I promise. I'm going to be smart, I'm going to be careful, and I'm going to come back. And hopefully your dad will too, and we'll figure out how to fix this mess together." "What if you can't fix it?" "Then we'll deal with that when we have to, but right now I need you to be brave and stay here where you're safe. Can you do that for me?" She nodded against my shoulder and I held her for another moment before forcing myself to pull away. Patricia walked me to the door, her face etched with worry. "Call me every hour," she said, "even if it's just a text to say you're okay." I promised I would, then drove back to Atlantic City alone. The Grandview Hotel looked different at night, the lights brighter, the crowds thicker, the energy more frenetic. I parked in the garage and made my way through the casino floor to the elevators, my heart pounding. When I reached the 18th floor, I found the hallway outside room 1847 occupied by the same large man in a suit I'd seen earlier. He recognized me. "Mrs. Chambers, you have a buy-in?" I hadn't thought about that. Of course I'd need money to even sit at the table. "How much?" $50,000 minimum." $50,000 I didn't have. I could see my plan crumbling before it even began. "I don't have cash. Can I put up collateral?" The man stepped aside and opened the door. "Take it up with Mr. Webb." I walked into the suite, which had been transformed since my earlier visit. The furniture had been rearranged to accommodate a large poker table in the centre of the room. 6 chairs were set up around it, though only 3 were currently occupied. Marcus Webb sat at the head of the table, looking relaxed and confident. 2 other men I didn't recognise flanked him. Nathan wasn't there yet. Webb looked up when I entered. "Mrs. Chambers, I didn't expect to see you again so soon." "I want to play." He raised an eyebrow. "Do you have $50,000? "I have collateral. Our house is worth about $300,000. We still owe $200 on the mortgage, which leaves $100,000 in equity. I can sign over half of it, $50,000 worth." Webb leaned back in his chair, studying me. "You'd risk your home to sit at this table." "My husband's going to risk it anyway. At least this way I have some control over what happens." He smiled. "I like you, Mrs. Chambers. You've got nerve. All right, you can play, but understand the terms. If you lose, I take the equity in your house. All of it, not just your half. Your husband already signed papers putting up his share as collateral for his buy-in." My blood went cold. Nathan had already done it. He'd already bet our home without telling me, without asking, without considering what would happen to Mara if we lost everything. "When did he sign those papers?" I demanded. "About an hour ago. He was the first one here, eager to get started. He's downstairs right now getting chips." Webb gestured to an empty chair. "Have a seat. We'll get your paperwork sorted out." One of Webb's men produced a stack of documents. I read through them carefully, my legal training from countless years of signing medical consent forms making me cautious. The terms were clear. I was putting up $50,000 worth of equity in my home. If I lost more than that amount during the game, Webb's organisation would file a lien against the property and could force a sale to recover their money. I signed with shaking hands, knowing I was potentially making the biggest mistake of my life. The other players began arriving. First was a man named Carlos, heavy-set with gold rings on every finger, who looked like he'd stepped out of a mob movie. Then came a younger guy, maybe 30, who introduced himself only as Jay, and had the cold, calculating eyes of a professional gambler. Finally, an older woman arrived, refined, expensively dressed with diamond earrings that probably cost more than my car. Her name was Diane, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd played in rooms like this before. At 8:15, Nathan walked in. He froze when he saw me at the table. "Grace, what are you doing here?" "Playing, same as you." His face went through a series of expressions: shock, anger, fear, and finally resignation. He took the empty seat next to mine, and I could smell the alcohol on his breath. He'd been drinking, trying to steady his nerves, which meant his judgment would be even worse than usual. Webb surveyed the table. "Now that we're all here, let's review the rules. This is Texas Hold'em, no limit. Minimum bet is $1,000. Buy-in was $50,000, but you can buy more chips if you have the collateral. Game continues until we're down to 1 player, or until 5 a.m., whichever comes first. Any questions?" No one spoke. "Then let's play." The first few hands were cautious, everyone feeling each other out. I folded most of my early hands, watching the dynamics of the table. Carlos played aggressively, betting big and trying to intimidate. Jay was methodical, calculating odds before every move. Diane was unpredictable, sometimes folding immediately and sometimes going all in on questionable hands. Nathan played desperately, chasing every pot, betting more than he should. And Webb played like someone who had nothing to lose, because the house always won in the end. By hand 15, Nathan had lost $20,000. I'd held steady, winning a few small pots but mostly staying out of trouble. But watching Nathan's spiral was torture. Every loss made him more reckless. Every bad beat made him more convinced the next hand would be the winner. "Nathan, fold," I whispered to him during one particularly bad hand. "I can't. I need this pot." "You have nothing. The board's showing a possible flush and you're holding junk. Fold." But he called anyway, and lost another $3,000 when Carlos revealed his flush. By midnight, Nathan was down to 15,000 in chips. He'd lost more than half his buy-in, and with it more than half our equity in the house. If he lost it all, we'd be left with nothing. No home, no savings, no security. I, on the other hand, had managed to grind my way up to 70,000. I'd played smart, folding when I should, betting aggressively only when I had strong hands. The old skills my father had taught me were coming back, and I was reading the other players better than I'd expected. During a break while Webb's men brought in drinks and snacks, Nathan pulled me aside. "You need to leave," he hissed. "This isn't your fight. You made it my fight when you bet our house. I'm not leaving until you do." "I can't leave. I have to win back what I've lost." "Nathan, you're never going to win it back. The math doesn't work that way. The house edge, the rake, the way Webb structured this game. It's designed for players to lose. The longer you play, the more certain it is that you'll go broke." "Then why are you playing?" "Because I can afford to lose my buy-in. You can't afford to lose yours. Every chip you lose is a piece of our life together. Our home, Mara's future, everything we've built. Is it really worth it?" For a moment I thought I'd gotten through to him. His face crumpled and he looked like he might cry. "I don't know how to stop. You stop by standing up and walking out that door, right now, with me. We go home, we face the consequences, and we start fixing this together." But then Webb called everyone back to the table and the moment was lost. Nathan returned to his seat, and the game resumed. The next several hours were brutal. Nathan continued to lose, his chip stack dwindling to 5,000, then 3,000, then less. He was one bad hand away from being eliminated. I tried to help him when I could, folding when I had the better hand to let him take a pot, verbally pushing him to fold when I knew he was beaten, but it wasn't enough. At 2:30 a.m., Nathan went all in on a hand with pocket kings. It was a strong hand, maybe his best of the night. Jay called with ace-queen, and we all watched the flop. Ace, 7, 2. Nathan needed another king or for Jay to miss his cards. The turn came, a 9, the river, a 4. Jay's pair of aces won. Nathan was eliminated. He sat there for a moment staring at the cards like he couldn't process what had just happened. Then he stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "I need to buy back in," he said to Webb. "With what collateral?" "I have a car, a 2019 Honda Accord. It's worth about 20,000. "Nathan." "No," I said, standing as well. "We need that car. How will you get to work? How will Mara get to school?" He ignored me, his focus entirely on Webb. "Will you take it?" Webb nodded. "Bring me the title and we'll get you another 20,000 in chips." Nathan left the room, presumably to go get the car title from his motel. I wanted to follow him, to stop him, but I couldn't leave the game without forfeiting my seat and my remaining chips. I was up to 90,000 now. I'd won several large pots while Nathan was spiraling, but leaving meant abandoning him to his own destruction. Diane, who'd been mostly quiet, leaned toward me. "Your husband has a problem." "I know." "Then why are you letting him do this?" "I'm not letting him do anything. He's an adult making his own terrible decisions." "But you're enabling him by being here, by playing along with this. If you really wanted to help him, you'd have called the police or walked him out of here hours ago." She was right, and I hated her for saying it, but what could I do? Nathan wouldn't leave, and short of physically dragging him out, which would probably get both of us hurt, I had no power to stop him. Nathan returned 45 minutes later with his car title. Webb verified it, then gave Nathan another 20,000 in chips. I watched in despair as Nathan sat back down, his eyes feverish with the gambler's conviction that this time would be different. It wasn't. Within an hour, Nathan had lost the 20,000. He'd chased bad hands, made foolish bluffs, and tilted so badly that even Carlos, who'd been loud and aggressive all night, looked uncomfortable. "I need more chips," Nathan said to Webb. "You're out of collateral, Nathan." "I have other things." My retirement account has about 40,000 in it. I can sign that over. Nathan, stop. I slammed my hand on the table, making everyone jump. That's it, no more. You've lost the house, you've lost the car, you are not losing your retirement too. We're done. We're leaving. I can't leave and I have to win it back. You're never going to win it back. My voice cracked with frustration and grief. Don't you see, you're going to keep losing until there's nothing left, until Mara has no home, no college fund, no future. Until I have nothing. Is that what you want? Nathan looked at me, and for the first time all night, I saw clarity in his eyes. The fog of addiction lifted just enough for him to see what he'd done, what he'd become. He saw the devastation he'd caused, and it broke something in him. I'm sorry, he whispered. Grace, I'm so sorry. I stood and took his arm. Let's go home. This time he didn't resist. He let me lead him towards the door. But before we could leave, Webb spoke up. Not so fast, we still have business to conclude. I turned back. What business? Nathan's out of chips, the game's over for him. But not for you. Webb gestured to my substantial chip stack. You're up $90,000. That's a significant amount of money. Money that could pay off a large chunk of your husband's debts. Are you really going to walk away from that? He was right. If I kept playing, if I kept winning, I might be able to recover enough to save our house, or at least save Nathan from Webb's other creditors. But every minute I stayed at that table was another minute I enabled this nightmare to continue. How much does Nathan owe you total? I asked. With tonight's losses? About 120,000. More than the equity in our house and the value of Nathan's car combined. If Webb collected, we'd be homeless and without transportation. Mara's college fund would have to go toward finding us a new place to live. Everything would be gone. I'll make you a deal, I said. I keep playing. If I win enough to cover Nathan's debt, you forgive everything and give us back our collateral. If I lose, you take it all and we walk away clean. No more harassment, no more threats. Webb considered this. And if you win more than his debt, what happens to the extra? I keep it. He smiled. You've got guts, Mrs. Chambers. All right, I'll take that bet. But understand, if you lose, I take everything. Your house, your car, and any other assets Nathan has access to. He signs a legally binding agreement that he'll never gamble again, and if he violates it, the consequences will be severe. Define severe. Let's just say my organization has ways of enforcing contracts that the legal system doesn't. He was threatening violence, maybe worse, but I didn't have a choice. If I walked away now, Webb would take everything anyway. At least this way I had a chance to save us. Fine, I said. Deal. I had Nathan sit in a chair against the wall, then returned to my seat at the table. The other players looked at me with a mixture of respect and pity. They'd seen players make desperate deals before. They knew how this usually ended. For the next hour, I played the best poker of my life. I read tells, calculated odds, and made moves that surprised even myself. I won pots from Carlos, from Jay, from Diane. My chip stack grew to 110,000, then 130, then 150. But then the cards turned against me. I lost a big pot to Jay when he hit an inside straight on the river. Then I lost another to Diane when her full house beat my flush. My stack dropped to 120,000, then 100, then 90 again. I was back where I started and the night was slipping away. It was almost 4 a.m. In 1 hour the game would end, and if I hadn't won enough to cover Nathan's debt, Webb would take everything. The next hand, I was dealt pocket aces. The best starting hand in poker. I raised big, trying to thin the field. Carlos and Diane folded, but Jay called. Webb folded. His job as dealer done for this hand. The flop came, ace of hearts, king of hearts, 7 of clubs. I had 3 aces, a set, one of the strongest possible hands, but the 2 hearts on the board meant someone could be chasing a flush. I bet 15,000, Jay called without hesitation. The turn, queen of hearts. Now there were 3 hearts on the board. If Jay had 2 hearts in his hand, he had a flush and I was beaten. But I couldn't fold, not with this much at stake. I bet another 20,000, trying to make it expensive for him to chase. Jay raised to 40,000. My stomach dropped. He either had the flush or he was bluffing and trying to push me off my hand. I looked at him, trying to read any tell, any sign of what he was holding. His face was impassive, his breathing steady. I looked at his hands. No trembling, no tension. But then I noticed something. His left foot was tapping rapidly under the table, a nervous habit he'd exhibited earlier in the night when he was bluffing. It was subtle, easy to miss, but it was there. He was bluffing. He didn't have the flush. Call, I said, pushing 40,000 in chips forward. The river. 2 of spades. No 4th heart. If he'd been chasing the flush, he'd missed. I had him. I just needed him to bet so I could raise and take the pot. But Jay surprised me. He went all in, pushing his entire remaining chip stack, about 60,000, into the center of the table. It was a massive overbet. The kind of move that screamed either supreme confidence or complete desperation. If I called and won, I'd have enough to cover Nathan's debt and have money left over. If I called and lost, I'd be nearly eliminated, with no realistic chance of recovery. I looked at Nathan sitting slumped in his chair against the wall. He was watching me with hollow eyes, seeing his fate decided by the turn of a card. I looked at my pocket aces again, at the 3 aces showing with the king and queen and 7 and 2. What could Jay have that would beat me? Only pocket 7s for a full house, or pocket deuces for a full house, or king-queen for 2 pair that became a full house. But those hands were unlikely given the betting pattern, and that tapping foot he was nervous because he knew he was beaten. Call, I said. Jay turned over his cards, Jack of hearts, 10 of hearts. He'd been on a flush draw just as I'd suspected. He'd missed. My 3 aces won the pot. I pulled in the chips, my hands shaking with adrenaline. I now had well over $200,000, enough to cover Nathan's debt and have 80,000 left over. I believe that settles our business, I said to Webb. He nodded slowly, then gestured to one of his men. Draw up the papers. Release of collateral for Nathan Chambers. Mrs. Chambers walks with 80,000 in cash, and Nathan signs the agreement that he's done gambling. Shudder, it took another 30 minutes to finalize everything. Nathan signed papers promising he'd never gamble again, with penalties that included financial ruin, and worse, if he violated the agreement. I signed papers taking possession of the $80,000, which Webb's men counted out in cash and placed in a black duffel bag. The title to Nathan's car and the lien release for our house were returned to us. At 5:15 a.m., Nathan and I walked out of that hotel room. The sun was just beginning to rise over the Atlantic, casting pink and orange light across the water. We didn't speak as we made our way through the now quiet casino, past sleeping gamblers and exhausted staff, out to the parking garage. In the car, Nathan finally broke the silence. You saved me. No, I said quietly. I saved Mara's future. I saved our house. But you, Nathan, you have to save yourself. This is the last time I'm pulling you out of a hole you dug. From now on, you either get serious help for your addiction, or I'm done. We're done. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. I'll get help. I promise I'll do whatever it takes. We drove back to Patricia's house as the sun rose higher, and I wondered if Nathan's promises meant anything anymore, or if they were just more words from a man who'd proven he couldn't be trusted. When we arrived, Patricia and Mara were both awake, sitting at the kitchen table with coffee cups in front of them. They looked up as we entered, and I saw the question in their eyes. Had we survived? I set the duffel bag on the table. We got the house back, and the car, and $80,000 to help pay off the other debts. Mara burst into tears and threw her arms around me. Patricia covered her mouth with her hand, relief washing over her face. Nathan stood in the doorway looking like he didn't deserve to be part of this reunion. He was right. He didn't. But we were a family, broken and damaged and barely holding together, and family meant giving chances even when logic said you shouldn't. You're getting help, I told Nathan firmly. Today. We're finding you a treatment program for gambling addiction, and you're checking in immediately. No excuses, no delays. Okay, he said. Whatever you want. I spent that morning researching treatment centres, while Nathan slept off his exhaustion on Patricia's couch. I found a residential program about an hour away that specialised in gambling addiction, with a 30-day intensive treatment followed by outpatient support. They had an opening and could take Nathan that afternoon. Patricia offered to drive him. You've done enough, she said to me. Let me do this part. I watched them leave, Patricia looking determined, Nathan looking scared, and felt the weight of the past 72 hours crash over me. I'd barely slept, had played poker with criminals, and had risked everything on the turn of cards. I should have felt relieved that it was over. Instead, I felt numb. Mara sat down beside me on Patricia's couch. Is Dad going to be okay? I don't know, honey, I hope so. Are you and Dad going to get divorced? The question I'd been avoiding. I don't know that either. A lot depends on whether he takes treatment seriously, whether he can actually stay away from gambling. But right now, I need you to know that whatever happens between your dad and me, you're going to be okay. We're going to make sure of that. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I'm glad you're here. I don't know what I'd do without you. Neither did I. Because somewhere in the chaos of the past few days, I'd realised that Mara wasn't just my stepdaughter anymore. She was my daughter in every way that mattered. And I'd fight to protect her future, even if it meant walking away from her father. But I wasn't ready to make that decision yet, not when Nathan was finally getting help, not when there was still a chance, however slim, that we could heal as a family. Later that afternoon, while Mara was napping and I was staring at the pile of financial documents I needed to sort through, my phone rang. It was Ray Hernandez, the poker club owner who'd first warned me about Marcus Webb. Mrs. Chambers. I heard what happened at Webb's game last night. Word travels fast in certain circles. What do you want? Just to tell you that you've got bigger problems than you know. Nathan didn't just owe Webb money. There's a guy named Vincent Calabrese who Nathan borrowed $15,000 from about 3 months ago. Vincent's not as sophisticated as Webb. He's old school, if you know what I mean. And he's been looking for Nathan. My stomach sank. How much does Nathan owe him? With interest. About $22,000 now. Vincent's not patient, Mrs. Chambers. If Nathan doesn't pay soon, things are going to get ugly. Why are you telling me this? Because I meant what I said before. I have a daughter. I don't want to see your family get hurt because your husband made stupid mistakes. You've got money now from last night's game. Use some of it to pay off Vincent before he comes collecting. He gave me Vincent's number and hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone, feeling like I'd stepped out of one nightmare directly into another. The $80,000 I'd won was supposed to be a fresh start, a way to rebuild. But if Nathan owed Vincent $22,000, plus whatever other debts Ray didn't know about, we'd be lucky if there was anything left. I called Vincent's number. A gruff voice answered on the third ring. Yeah? My name is Grace Chambers. I'm Nathan Chambers' wife. I'm calling about his debt to you. There was a pause. Put Nathan on the phone. He's not available. He's entered a treatment program for gambling addiction. But I have money to pay you what he owes. $22,000, right? 25. Interest went up when he missed his last payment. Of course it did. Fine. 25,000. Where do we meet? He gave me an address in Philadelphia, told me to come tomorrow at noon, and warned me to bring cash and come alone. Then he hung up. I was so tired of men telling me to come alone to dangerous meetings, but I didn't have a choice. If I wanted to protect my family, I had to deal with the consequences of Nathan's actions, one debt at a time. The next morning, I made the drive to Philadelphia with $25,000 in a paper bag. The address Vincent had given me was a restaurant in South Philly, the kind of old-school Italian place that probably served as a front for less legitimate business. Vincent turned out to be a man in his 60s, thick-necked and cold-eyed, sitting at a corner table with two younger men flanking him. He gestured for me to sit. "You brought the money." I set the bag on the table. One of the younger men opened it, counted the cash, and nodded to Vincent. "We're square," Vincent said. "But tell your husband if he ever comes to me for money again, the answer is no. I don't lend to addicts. They're bad investments." I stood to leave, but Vincent spoke again. "One more thing. Your husband mentioned he might have access to his daughter's college fund. About $40,000. You might want to check on that, make sure it's still there." My blood went cold. Mara's college fund. Nathan wouldn't have... He couldn't have, I thanked Vincent, God knows why, and left the restaurant. In my car, I immediately called our bank and asked them to check the status of Mara's education savings account. The account had a balance of $800. $39,200 was missing. Nathan had taken nearly everything we'd saved for Mara's future. I sat in that parking lot and cried for the first time since this nightmare began. Not angry tears or stressed tears, but deep, grieving sobs for the marriage I'd thought I had, for the man I'd thought Nathan was, for the future I'd imagined for all of us. When I finally composed myself enough to drive, I went straight to the treatment center where Nathan was. I demanded to see him immediately, and after some back and forth with the staff, they brought him to a private visitor's room. He looked better already, cleaner, more rested, less desperate, but when he saw my face, he knew something was wrong. "Grace, Mara's college fund. Where did it go?" He closed his eyes. "I borrowed from it. I was going to pay it back." "Borrowed? You borrowed $39,000 from our daughter's future. Where did it go, Nathan?" "Debts, gambling debts. I thought if I could just clear those out, I'd be able to stop to focus on rebuilding. I was going to pay it all back before Mara needed it for college." "She starts college in 8 months. Did you think you were going to magically earn $40,000 in 8 months while also paying off all your other debts and keeping up with our mortgage?" I wasn't thinking clearly. "Grace, I'm sorry." "Stop saying you're sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't give Mara her future back. Sorry is just a word you use to make yourself feel better about destroying everything you touch." He flinched like I'd hit him. Good. He should feel every bit of the pain he'd caused. "I'm done," I said quietly. "I'm done sacrificing everything to save you from yourself. When you finish this program, you're going to move in with your mother. I'm filing for divorce. And you're going to sign over full custody of Mara to me without a fight, because if you don't, I will drag every single one of your lies and debts into open court." "Grace, please, don't do this. I'm getting help. I'm trying to change. You should have tried before you destroyed our lives, before you lied to your daughter for 2 years, before you stole her college fund. Some things you can't come back from, Nathan. This is one of them." I left without looking back, and I knew with absolute certainty that my marriage was over. The first week after I told Nathan I was filing for divorce passed in a blur of phone calls with lawyers, conversations with Mara about what our future would look like, and the grim task of inventorying exactly how much damage Nathan had done to our finances. The answer was devastating. Between the debts he'd paid off, the money he'd lost, and the college fund he'd raided, we'd lost nearly everything we'd saved during our marriage. The $80,000 I'd won would have to cover attorney fees, living expenses while we rebuilt, and the beginning of a new college fund for Mara. It wasn't enough, but it was all we had. Mara took the news about the divorce better than I'd expected. I think part of her had been preparing for this outcome since the moment she first told me about her father's lies. She was sad, of course. She loved Nathan despite everything, but she was also relieved. The uncertainty was over. We knew where we stood and could start moving forward. What she struggled with was her mother's sudden reappearance in her life. Lauren had called 3 days after Nathan entered treatment, having heard through some mutual acquaintance about what had happened. She wanted to talk to Mara, wanted to explain that she'd had no idea Nathan was using her as a fictional villain in his web of lies. "Do I have to talk to her?" Mara asked me one evening as we sat in Patricia's living room, which had become our temporary home while we figured out next steps. "No, honey, you never have to talk to anyone you don't want to, but I think Lauren deserves a chance to tell you her side of things. She didn't do what your dad claimed. That's worth something." Mara agreed to a phone call, which turned into a video chat, which turned into Lauren offering to fly out from California to meet Mara in person. I was wary. This woman had walked away from her daughter a decade ago, and sudden interest now felt suspicious. But Mara wanted to meet her, so I agreed. Lauren arrived on a Saturday morning, 3 weeks after the poker game that had saved and shattered us in equal measure. I insisted on being present for the meeting, which took place at a neutral location, a coffee shop in downtown Philadelphia. Patricia came too, both of us determined to protect Mara from any additional emotional damage. Lauren looked nothing like I'd imagined. She was petite, with dark hair cut short, wearing jeans and a simple sweater. She looked nervous as she approached our table, her eyes immediately finding Mara. "Hi, baby girl," she said softly. Mara stood awkwardly, and Lauren pulled her into a hug that lasted several long seconds. When they separated, both had tears in their eyes. We all sat, ordered coffee none of us really wanted, and began the difficult conversation about the past and the future. "I need you to understand something," Lauren said to Mara. "When I left, it wasn't because I didn't love you. I was 25 years old, completely overwhelmed, in a marriage that was falling apart and dealing with my own mental health issues that I didn't understand at the time. I was diagnosed with severe depression and anxiety a few years after I moved to California. Once I got treatment and stabilized, I realized what I'd done to you, and by then I felt like it was too late to come back. I thought you'd be better off without me." "That wasn't your decision to make," Mara said, her voice trembling. "You should have tried. You should have fought for me." "You're right. I was a coward. I convinced myself that walking away was the kind thing to do, but really I was just protecting myself from having to face what I'd done." Lauren looked at me. "Grace has been the mother I should have been. I'm grateful to her for that, even though I hate myself for making it necessary." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to defend my role in Mara's life, to make it clear that Lauren couldn't just waltz back in after a decade and reclaim the title of mom. But I also saw genuine remorse in her eyes, and I thought about what Mara needed most right now. She needed to know her biological mother hadn't abandoned her because she was unlovable. She needed to understand that Lauren's departure was about Lauren's own brokenness, not about Mara's worth. "Why now?" I asked. "Why reach out now after all these years?" Lauren turned to me. "Because when Nathan told Mara I was threatening to take him to court for money, she called me to confront me about it. That conversation was the first real one we'd had in years. And talking to her, hearing her voice, remembering who she was, it woke something up in me. I realized I'd been hiding from my biggest mistake for so long that I'd forgotten I still had the chance to do something about it." "I'm not a mistake," Mara said sharply. "No, sweetheart. You're the best thing I ever made. My mistake was leaving you, and I can't undo that. But I can try to be present going forward, if you'll let me." What followed was an hour of difficult conversation. Lauren answered Mara's questions honestly. Why she'd left, what her life had been like in California, why she'd sent generic birthday cards instead of trying harder to maintain contact, whether she'd ever regretted her decision. "Yes," she said to that last question. "Every single day." By the end of the conversation, no one was certain what came next, but Mara and Lauren exchanged phone numbers with the understanding that they'd talk regularly and figure out how to rebuild some kind of relationship. It wasn't forgiveness, exactly, but it was a beginning. After Lauren left to catch her flight back to California, Mara turned to me. "I'm not replacing you, you know. Even if I get closer to Mom, you're still my real Mom." I hugged her tightly, my heart simultaneously breaking and healing. "I know, baby, and I want you to have a relationship with Lauren if that's what you need. You're allowed to love both of us." Patricia, who'd been mostly quiet during the meeting, spoke up. "That woman has a lot of nerve showing up after all these years." "She does," I agreed. "But she also showed up. That counts for something." The divorce proceedings moved forward quickly. Nathan didn't contest anything. He signed over full custody of Mara, agreed to the division of remaining assets, and admitted to the financial abuse that had characterized the end of our marriage. His lawyer told my lawyer that Nathan was genuinely remorseful and wanted to make the process as easy as possible for everyone involved. Easy. As if there was anything easy about dismantling 8 years of marriage and 6 years of deception. I saw Nathan only once during this period, when he completed his 30-day residential treatment and transitioned to outpatient care. He was living with Patricia, working part-time at a hardware store, and attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings every day. He asked to meet with me to apologize properly, and despite my lawyer's advice to avoid contact, I agreed. We met at the same coffee shop where Lauren had met Mara, as if that location had become our family's designated place for difficult conversations. Nathan looked different, thinner, older, with grey streaks in his hair I hadn't noticed before. He was sober in a way that went beyond just not drinking. He seemed to have woken up from a years-long fog. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he started. "I don't deserve that. But I need you to know that I understand what I did. The treatment program made me face it all. The lying, the manipulation, the way I used you and Mara to hide my addiction. I'm not going to make excuses. I'm just going to spend the rest of my life trying to be better." "That's good, Nathan. You should do that. But you should do it for yourself, not for me. We're done." "I know, I need to tell you something that might change how you think about everything." I braced myself for another revelation, another secret that would reshape my understanding of our marriage. What? The money. The $90,000 I took from our accounts over 2 years. I didn't lose all of it gambling. I felt my stomach drop. What? About 30,000 of it went to something else, someone else. He couldn't meet my eyes. "I had an affair, Grace. It lasted about 6 months, ended over a year ago. She was someone I met at one of the poker games, and I spent money on her: hotels, gifts, trips I claimed were for work. I'm telling you now because you deserve to know the full truth, not because I think it matters legally or because it changes anything about the divorce." An affair. On top of everything else, the lies, the gambling, the financial devastation, he'd also cheated on me. I should have felt angry, but instead I just felt tired. The betrayal was almost abstract at this point, one more piece of evidence that the man I'd married had never really existed. "Thank you for telling me," I said quietly. "It doesn't change anything, like you said, but I appreciate the honesty, even if it's several years too late." Her name was Jenna. She worked as a dealer at one of the clubs. She didn't know I was married at first. When she found out, she ended it. I tried to convince her to keep seeing me, but she had more integrity than I did. That was about the time I really spiraled into the worst of the gambling, trying to forget about her and about what a terrible person I'd become. "You know what's strange?" I said. "I feel sorry for you. Not in a way that makes me want to stay or forgive you. But I see how much you've destroyed. Your marriage, your relationship with your daughter, your finances, your self-respect. And I feel sorry that you had to hit rock bottom this hard to finally wake up." "I deserve worse than this," Nathan said. "But I'm going to try to be the father Mara deserves, even if I can never be the husband you deserved." We parted ways after that, and I knew it would be the last time we'd speak as husband and wife. The legal paperwork would finalise in a few months, and then we'd just be co-parents navigating the awkward dance of shared custody, though given that Mara was 17 and would be off to college soon, even that would be minimal. As spring turned to early summer, Mara and I moved into a small apartment about 20 minutes from our old house. We'd had to sell the house anyway. Even though we'd gotten it back from Marcus Webb, we couldn't afford the mortgage on my salary alone. The sale netted us about $80,000 after paying off the remaining mortgage and covering fees, which combined with what was left of my poker winnings gave us the cushion to start over. I helped Mara fill out college applications, explaining that she'd need to apply for financial aid and scholarships since we no longer had a college fund. She was upset about having to take on student loans, but she understood. She also got a part-time job at a local bookstore, determined to contribute to her own future. One evening, as we were painting her new bedroom a colour she'd chosen, a soft lavender that made the small space feel bigger, my phone rang. It was Ray Hernandez. "Mrs. Chambers, I hope I'm not calling at a bad time." "What do you need, Ray?" "Actually, I'm calling with an opportunity. How would you feel about working for me?" I set down my paintbrush. "Excuse me." "You're a hell of a poker player. I watched some of the footage from Webb's game. He records everything for security purposes, and I have connections. You read people well, you keep your cool under pressure, and you have the skills to compete at high levels. I want to sponsor you in some tournaments. Legitimate tournaments, WSOP events, not underground games. I'd cover your buy-ins, and we'd split any winnings 60-40, your favour." "Ray, I'm a nurse practitioner. I'm not a professional poker player." "You could be. With training and experience, you could compete at the highest levels. And the money is real, Grace. A deep run in a major tournament could win you hundreds of thousands. Enough to secure Mara's future, to rebuild everything Nathan destroyed." It was tempting. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't. But poker was what had destroyed my family. The idea of making a career out of it felt like embracing the thing that had caused so much pain. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm going to pass. I need stability right now, not the roller coaster of tournament poker." "I understand, but if you change your mind, the offer stands. You have my number." After he hung up, Mara looked at me curiously. "Are you going to do it?" "No. I'm going back to work at the hospital and we're going to rebuild our lives the slow, steady way." "But what if you could win a lot of money? Enough that I wouldn't need loans for college." "Mara, I didn't save us from your father's gambling addiction just to develop one myself. Some risks aren't worth taking." She nodded, seeming relieved. "Good, because I like knowing you'll be home every night, not off at some casino somewhere." We finished painting her room, ordered pizza, and watched a movie. Simple, normal activities that felt precious after months of chaos. But Ray's offer stuck with me. Not because I wanted to pursue professional poker, but because it made me realize I'd discovered something about myself during that terrible night at Marcus Webb's game. I was good under pressure. I could read people and situations, make strategic decisions, and hold my nerve when everything was on the line. Those were valuable skills, and maybe there was a way to use them that didn't involve gambling. Over the next few weeks, I started researching careers in crisis management, hostage negotiation, and high-stakes mediation. These were fields where my nursing background, staying calm in emergencies, making quick decisions, reading patients and families in distress, would translate well. And the more I researched, the more excited I became about the possibility of a career change. I was 42 years old. If not now, when? At Shambles, I enrolled in a crisis negotiations certification program that met on weekends, started networking with people in the field, and began to imagine a future that looked nothing like the one I'd planned, but might be even better. Mara noticed the change in me. "You seem happier," she said one evening. "I think I am. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm moving towards something instead of just managing what's in front of me. She smiled. Good. You deserve that. The divorce was finalized in early July, almost exactly 4 months after that terrible night when Mara first told me, Dad made me promise not to tell you. 4 months that had contained more upheaval, revelation, and transformation than some people experienced in a lifetime. Nathan sent me a text on the day the divorce was final. I'm sorry for everything. I hope someday you can forgive me. I didn't respond. Forgiveness wasn't something I owed him, and I wasn't sure I'd ever get there anyway. But I was learning to accept what had happened, to integrate it into my story without letting it define me. A week after the divorce was finalized, Patricia invited Mara and me to dinner at her house. When we arrived, we found Lauren there too. Apparently Patricia had extended the invitation to her as well, wanting all the important women in Mara's life to come together. It could have been awkward. The ex-wife, the stepmother, turned adoptive mother, and the grandmother all sitting around the same table. But instead, it felt right. We were all women who loved Mara, who'd been damaged by Nathan in different ways, and who were trying to build something better from the ruins. Over Patricia's pot roast and homemade pie, we talked about Mara's college plans. She'd been accepted to 3 schools and was leaning toward a state university with a strong scholarship package. About Lauren's work as a graphic designer in California. About Patricia's volunteer work with a local women's shelter. About my crisis negotiation training. I'm proud of all of us, Patricia said at one point. We could have let Nathan's mistakes tear us apart, turn us against each other. Instead, we came together for Mara. That takes strength. It takes love, Lauren corrected quietly. We all love this girl enough to put our own hurt aside and focus on what she needs. Mara, who'd been mostly quiet during dinner, spoke up. I'm lucky. I know not every kid has this. 3 moms who all want the best for me. Dad messed up, but somehow I ended up with more love, not less. After dinner, as Mara and Lauren cleaned up in the kitchen, Patricia pulled me aside. There's something I need to tell you. Nathan called me yesterday. He's been offered a job in Oregon, working for a furniture manufacturer. It's a good opportunity, a fresh start. He's thinking about taking it. Oregon? That's across the country. I know. He wanted me to ask you how you'd feel about it. He doesn't want to abandon Mara, but he also thinks maybe some distance would be good for everyone. Let you and Mara build your life without him constantly being a reminder of everything that went wrong. I thought about it. Part of me wanted Nathan nearby so he could still be a father to Mara, still have a relationship with his daughter even if our marriage was over. But another part of me knew that distance might actually be better. Mara could visit him during breaks, they could talk on the phone and video chat, but we wouldn't constantly be running into him around town or dealing with the awkwardness of shared spaces. Tell him I think it's a good idea, I said finally. But he needs to make sure Mara knows it's not about abandoning her. He needs to stay in touch, be consistent, prove that he's changed. I'll tell him, Grace, I know Nathan destroyed your marriage, but I want you to know that I consider you family. You always will be. You're Mara's mother, and that makes you my family, regardless of what the legal paperwork says. I hugged Patricia, grateful for her steadiness through all of this. She'd lost a son to addiction. Not permanently, but the Nathan she'd raised was gone, replaced by someone who had to rebuild himself from scratch. Yet she'd never wavered in her support for Mara and me. That was what family really meant, I realized. Not legal documents or blood relations, but people who showed up when things got hard, who chose to love you, even when it would be easier to walk away. August arrived, and with it came Mara's 18th birthday. We celebrated with a small party, me, Patricia, Lauren, who flew out for the occasion, and a handful of Mara's close friends. Nathan sent a video message from Oregon, where he'd moved the week before. He looked healthy, sober, and genuinely happy for his daughter, though I could see the sadness in his eyes at missing this milestone. "I'm proud of you, Mara," he said in the video. "I know I wasn't the father you deserved, but I'm working every day to become someone you can be proud of." "I love you, baby girl. Happy birthday." Mara cried watching it, and I held her while she processed the complicated feelings of loving a parent who'd hurt her so badly. Later, as guests were leaving and we were cleaning up, Mara pulled me aside. "I have something to tell you. I've been talking to a therapist. Patricia helped me find one, and she's been helping me work through everything that happened." "That's good, honey. I'm glad you're getting support." "One thing she's helped me understand is that I spent 2 years feeling guilty for keeping Dad's secret. I thought I was protecting you, but really I was protecting him. I let him make me complicit in his lies because I was afraid of what would happen if I told the truth." "Mara, you were a child. That wasn't your responsibility." "I know, but I need to say it anyway. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. If I had, maybe we could have gotten Dad help before things got so bad. Maybe we'd still have our house and my college fund and everything. Or maybe Nathan would have lied better, hidden things more carefully, and we'd still be in the dark. Mara, you are not responsible for your father's choices. Not then, not now, not ever. Do you understand me?" She nodded, wiping her eyes. "My therapist says I'm not responsible, but that it's okay to feel sad about how things turned out. I'm allowed to grieve the family I thought we were." "Of course you are. We're all grieving that. But I'm also learning to be grateful for what I have now. I have you. I have Grandma Patricia. I even have Mum back, kind of. I'm starting college in 3 weeks. I have a future. Dad almost destroyed all of that, but he didn't. We saved it. You saved it." I pulled her into a tight hug. "We saved it together. You were so brave, telling me the truth even though you were scared. You started all of this. You're the reason we're here now, rebuilding instead of still living in that lie." As summer wound down and we prepared for Mara to leave for college, I found myself reflecting on everything that had happened since that February evening when 5 words had changed our lives. Dad made me promise not to tell you. Those words had led to the unraveling of my marriage, the discovery of Nathan's addiction and betrayal, the night of high-stakes poker that had saved and traumatized us, the painful process of divorce, and the slow rebuilding of our lives from the ashes. But they'd also led to truth, to Mara finding her voice and reconnecting with her biological mother, to me discovering strengths I didn't know I had and pursuing a new career path that excited me. To all of us, me, Mara, Patricia, even Lauren, forming a chosen family based on love and mutual support rather than obligation or lies. The day we moved Mara into her dorm room, I experienced a strange mixture of emotions: pride in the resilient young woman she'd become, sadness at her leaving home, relief that she was starting this new chapter away from the chaos of the past year. And hope. Hope that the worst was behind us, that we'd weathered the storm and come out stronger. As I hugged Mara goodbye in the parking lot, she whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on us." "On me." "Never," I whispered back. "I will never give up on you." Driving home alone, I thought about Nathan's secrets and how they'd nearly destroyed us. But I also thought about how secrets have a way of coming out eventually. How truth always finds a path forward, and how sometimes the thing you fear most, the truth being revealed, is actually the thing that sets you free. My phone rang as I pulled into the parking lot of my apartment. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I answered anyway. "Grace Chambers. This is Detective Sarah Morrison with the Philadelphia Police Department. I'm investigating some financial crimes connected to Marcus Webb, and I understand you had dealings with him. Would you be willing to meet with me to discuss what you know?" My heart rate kicked up. What kind of crimes? Money laundering, racketeering, and conspiracy to commit fraud. We've been building a case against Webb's organization for 2 years, and we think your testimony could be valuable. I know this is a lot to ask, especially given what you've been through, but you could help us take down a major criminal operation. I thought about Webb's cold eyes, about the threats he'd made, about the way he'd designed that poker game to destroy desperate people like Nathan. I thought about the other families he'd likely ruined, the other addicts he'd exploited. Yes, I said, I'll help. Over the next several months, I worked with Detective Morrison and the FBI task force investigating Webb's organization. I provided testimony about the poker game, the extortion, the break-in at my house, and the threats Webb had made. My testimony, combined with evidence from dozens of other victims and undercover operations, led to Webb's arrest and indictment on multiple federal charges. The trial was scheduled for the following spring. I'd have to testify in person, relive that terrible night, and face Webb in court. But I was ready. I'd spent the past year rebuilding my life, finding my strength, and learning that I was capable of far more than I'd ever imagined. Nathan called me when he heard about Webb's arrest. He was still in Oregon, still sober, still working on himself. Grace, be careful. Webb has connections, and if he thinks you're responsible for him going to prison. I know the risks, but someone has to stand up to people like him. If not me, then who? I wish I'd been as brave as you when it mattered. You can be brave now, Nathan. Keep working your program. Be the father Mara needs. That's the bravest thing you can do. We talked for a few more minutes, the longest conversation we'd had since the divorce, and when we hung up, I felt a small measure of closure. Nathan and I would never be friends, would never recapture what we'd lost. But maybe we could be civil co-parents who wanted the best for our daughter. That was enough. Christmas came, and Mara came home for winter break. She'd thrived at college, made friends, joined clubs, declared a major in psychology because she wanted to help people who'd been through trauma like she had. Watching her tell stories about her new life, I felt a fierce pride and gratitude that we'd made it through the darkness to this moment of light. On Christmas Eve, we had dinner at Patricia's house. Me, Mara, Patricia, and Lauren, who'd flown out to spend the holidays with Mara. We'd become an unconventional family, but we were a family nonetheless. After dinner, Patricia gave me a gift, a small wrapped box that contained a silver bracelet. Engraved on it were the words, "She believed she could, so she did." That's you, Patricia said. You believed you could save your family, and you did. Not in the way you expected, maybe, but you saved Mara, you saved yourself. You even saved Nathan by refusing to enable him anymore. I'm so grateful my son married you, even if he wasn't smart enough to stay married to you. I wore that bracelet every day after that, a reminder of how far I'd come and how much strength I'd discovered in myself. The trial began in March, almost exactly a year after Mara first told me about Nathan's lies. I sat in the witness stand and told my story. All of it, holding nothing back. Webb's defense attorney tried to make me look like a willing participant in illegal gambling, but the prosecutor shut that down quickly, showing how Webb had manipulated and threatened me. When I finished testifying, I felt lighter. I'd told the truth under oath. In public, with no more secrets to hide. Whatever happened next, I'd done my part. The jury deliberated for 3 days before returning a verdict, guilty on all counts. Webb was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. Several of his associates were also convicted and sentenced. The illegal gambling operation was dismantled. Detective Morrison called me after the sentencing. "You did good, Grace. You helped put a dangerous man behind bars and probably saved other families from going through what you went through. I just told the truth. Seems like the least I could do." You'd be surprised. How many people aren't willing to do even that? Thank you. Spring turned to summer, and I completed my crisis negotiations certification. I was offered a position with a private firm that contracted with corporations, law enforcement, and government agencies to handle high-stakes negotiations. The work was challenging, rewarding, and paid significantly more than nursing. I'd found my calling, it turned out, in the most unlikely of circumstances. Mara came home for the summer and announced that she'd been offered an internship at a mental health clinic that worked with adolescents dealing with family trauma. "I want to help kids like me," she explained. "Kids whose parents are struggling with addiction or who are caught in the middle of messy situations. I want them to know they're not alone, and it's not their fault." Lauren decided to move from California to Pennsylvania, wanting to be closer to Mara now that they'd rebuilt their relationship. She rented an apartment not far from mine, and we established an easy friendship based on our shared love for Mara and our shared experience of surviving Nathan's addiction. Nathan remained in Oregon. He video called Mara once a week without fail, was consistent in his recovery program, and had been promoted at his job. He'd started dating someone, a woman he'd met at a Gamblers Anonymous meeting who was also in recovery. He seemed genuinely changed, though I knew the real test would be whether he could sustain that change over years, not months. One evening in late July, I sat on my apartment balcony watching the sunset and taking stock of my life. 18 months ago, I'd been living a lie, married to a man who'd systematically betrayed me, unaware that my family was built on a foundation of deception. Now I was divorced but not broken. I had a new career that excited me. I had a daughter who was thriving. I had a chosen family of women who supported and loved each other. I had saved us from financial ruin and helped bring a criminal to justice. I had survived and even found a way to thrive. My phone buzzed with a text from Mara. "Love you, Mum. Thanks for everything." Mum, not Grace, not my stepmom. Mum. I smiled and texted back, "Love you too, baby girl, always." As darkness fell and stars began to appear, I thought about secrets and how they grow in darkness, feeding on silence and shame. I thought about how one brave choice, Mara deciding to tell me the truth, had changed everything. And I thought about how sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the catalyst for becoming the person you were always meant to be. The truth had shattered my life, yes, but from those broken pieces I'd built something stronger, more authentic, and more beautiful than what I'd lost. And that, I realized, was the real ending to this story. Not happily ever after in the traditional sense, but something better. Honestly ever after, with all the complicated, messy, difficult beauty that truth brings. Entrades. I raised my glass of wine to the darkening sky, a toast to survival, to transformation, to the future we'd fought so hard to claim. We'd made it. Against all odds, through all the darkness, we'd made it to the other side. And that was enough.